Hey folks, before we get to today's show, I just wanted to add a little note to this episode celebrating the grand opening TV special celebration for Disney-MGM Studios. When we recorded this episode a few weeks ago, we made mention of the fact that so many people that are part of this special have passed away since its airing. Sadly, we've lost another person associated with this special since we recorded just a few weeks ago. Actor, comedian, and magician Harry Anderson was found non-responsive in his North Carolina home on April 16, 2018. We dedicate this episode of Disney Coast to Coast to him and all of the wonderful stars we've lost who are featured in the Disney-MGM Studios grand opening.
Is your magic meter running low? Well, we've got a cure for you. Welcome to Disney Coast to Coast.
Hey folks, and welcome to Disney Coast to Coast, the ultimate unofficial Disney fan podcast. I'm Jeff DePaoli, and today on the show I have my good friend Kory from the No Midnight podcast here with me. Hello, Kory, and welcome to the show.
Hey, that's me.
Have you been here before? Have we done a trivia time? I can't remember.
We've done a trivia time, 2 trivia times.
That's right. Now I do.
But I don't think I've ever been like a formal guest on the show.
Well, here you go. Now you're an official co-host on Disney Coast to Coast. And for those folks that don't know No Midnight podcast, can you tell them a little bit about it?
Yeah, we have a lot of fun with this. So we launched a year and a half ago as just a one time a week show, and then kind of expanded the features of that show into 3 different shows, or more specifically 2 different shows. So now we do Trending on Mondays, which is a very quick, very condensed digest of what's going on in the parks across the country, including news and rumors. And then we also talk about closures and crowd levels and stuff like that. So it really can kind of help you plan your trips to the park that week. And then Wednesday nights is Happy Hour Live, our original show, where it's exactly what it sounds like. We sit around, celebrate happy hour, have a cocktail, and talk about all things parks and related pop culture. And then Friday is our Flex Space, where we usually will do an interview series or a serial, and we are in pre-production on our next serial. Those have been really popular, so we're working on another one that's going to launch in a few weeks.
Excellent. I think by the time that this episode gets released, it'll actually be out already, as this is coming out toward the end of April. But I must...
You have a lot of faith in me.
I must say, your serials are my favorite part of your podcast. They're fantastic. You've done one all about Walt Disney, and then one about the Disney decade. And I think those are the only 2 so far? Or
those are the only 2. Number 3 is coming soon.
Okay.
It might be out right now. So go check the No Midnight podcast channel wherever you get your podcasts.
Excellent. And thank you for coming on the show. Today we are here because coming up on May 1st, we will be celebrating the 29th anniversary of Disney's Hollywood Studios.
Wow.
Yeah, and back in the day, there was a little special on television called the Disney-MGM Studios Grand Opening, which is available on YouTube. I will put the link in this episode description so you can watch it. And we're just going to have a little discussion about this, so let's get to that right now.
It's time to dive into today's Disney Dialogue.
So, Kory, what did you think of this special? This is some magic, isn't it?
If I had to describe it using 2 words, holy 80s would be the word that I would use.
Yes, it was 1989 that this came out. That's the year that Disney-MGM Studios opened. And man, I don't remember seeing it as a kid, but I have definitely watched this on YouTube more than once. Where does your heart lie with Disney's Hollywood Studios?
I miss MGM. I feel like I realize that the name has nothing to do with the park concept, and I totally get that.
Let me just stop you there for a second. If that's how we're gonna name parks these days, then Disney California Adventure has a real problem.
Oh, Disney California certainly has a real problem. The name is irrelevant at this point.
Like more so than Disney's.
I said on Happy Hour Live the other night, I was like, it's like Disney's California park entrance now.
Yeah, exactly. Like it's Disney's Hollywood Studios. I still accept as a name. Like if that were to stay the name for now and for a long time, I'd be cool with that. I have no problem with the name Disney's Hollywood Studios.
Looks like you might get your wish.
Yeah, do you think so? I know that they came out with that statement. I don't really trust that statement very much. If you don't know what we're talking about, there's the whole rumor about the name change to Disney Cinemagine Park, and then people were disgruntled about that. So Disney came out with an official statement saying, essentially, it's not changing for the foreseeable future. But I don't know. I just think foreseeable future is such a vague statement. I still think a name change is coming.
Well, I think it was Disney's way of saying, okay, not that one. Okay, all right, we heard you. Not that one. Got it.
But did they really think that one was going to be popular? I mean,
I don't know, because I thought it was censoring myself really hard right now. I thought it was terrible when I heard it.
Yeah.
It was like, there were no good names on that list.
There are absolutely no good names on that list.
Nothing.
And like, frankly, the simple one that everybody keeps going back to is the Disney Hollywood Adventure, which I think makes it's stupid, it's simple, but heck, like, I don't know, it works for me. But in any case, we're here to talk about old school Disney-MGM Studios, and so at the beginning of the special, we get a little, intro by Michael Eisner, which I always love. Where do you stand when it comes to that?
Hello, I'm Michael Eisner.
I know his voice, as you go through
he introduces himself the same way in every special, because when we were producing the Disney Decade, I was trying to find we made a little commercial to promote the show, and there was a clip of him saying, hello, I'm Michael Eisner, and I ended up finding like 6 different intros from those TV shows, and he says it the exact same way, like the same cadence, the same excitement level or lack thereof in every single introduction. It was just every time I hear it, I'm like, oh, hello, Michael Eisner.
He's consistent.
Yes. Yeah.
But I love those Michael Eisner intros personally. They're like one of my favorite things, and I miss them.
Well, they harken back to Walt, which is what's really cool about them, and obviously that's where the concept came from. But he was the familiar face that kind of introduced you to, all right, we're going to step outside our comfort zone now. We're going to show you some things, but I'm here, so it's cool.
Yeah. And I believe that this little intro would be the first time that the public would hear this whole "a Hollywood that never was and will always be" statement that was made. And I just love that, because to me that just completely encompasses Disney-MGM Studios. I think it's the perfect little saying for that park.
Absolutely, and it fits in with exactly what it was, because any of us who have been around the television and or motion picture industry, I know you and I both have to a certain degree, know that a lot of the stuff that happened in that park was very embellished. I mean, it was a very pretty view of what goes on behind the scenes, but it was appetizing, and it really highlighted all the positives of the motion picture industry, and truly did create a piece of Hollywood in Florida. But it kind of took the Hollywood concept and almost improved upon it, because it was a very polished, very pretty, very digestible version of Hollywood. Yeah,
it's what like Hollywood dreams are made of, essentially. When you're dreaming of that Hollywood lifestyle, it's Disney's Hollywood Studios, essentially.
Absolutely.
It's not the real Hollywood in Highland, folks, that's for sure. But in any case, I loved it. Right after the Michael Eisner intro, they do, the whole list of stars that are going to be in the special. And one of the things that just
that part cracked me up. I was like, are they still going? They are. Oh,
well, there were a lot of them, but I think the part that actually legitimately made me laugh out loud was when the announcer goes, "Starring in alphabetical order," and I was like, "Oh my goodness!" That they had to say that because of the egos involved in this list of people.
Totally.
That were just like, no, I'm first or whatever, and like, forget it. We're going alphabetical. We'll make it clear that we're going alphabetical so that there's no hierarchy here. And I just thought that was so funny.
The stars in alphabetical order. Thanks, Suzanne Somers. Yeah,
exactly.
Like that kind of thing.
And then we jump into a musical number of Magic to Do from the musical Pippin, starring Smokey Robinson. And I
totally did not recognize that from Pippin when I heard Smokey sing it.
Oh, really?
Did not recognize it from Pippin.
Yeah, it's the opening number of Pippin, and probably one of 2 songs from that musical that I actually like. But an interesting way to start the special. I don't know. What did you think of this musical number?
It was fierce.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was very over the top. And I don't know. I realize that Smokey Robinson comes with a name, obviously. But I don't know that someone with such a soft voice. And if you watch the choreography, he wasn't really like into the choreography. Like he was just kind of walking, while everybody else did the choreography. I feel like they could have chosen a more high energy star of the age to maybe kick that off, because it's like you have all this grand production and 40 dancers and they're moving up the street with a big, truck shot and doing these huge things. But then it's just like Smokey. He just didn't, I don't know. I thought he did fine with it. And obviously if someone offered me the job, I'm going to take it. But, I don't know. I feel like they could have gone with someone more high energy, especially in that day and age. I mean, you could have, there were so many people you could have gotten to do that in the late 80s. You could have gotten Michael Jackson to do that.
That's exactly what I was thinking. I was like, I wonder if Michael Jackson would have done it. It was Disney. I mean, good chance. I don't know. I'm sure he was cheaper, Smokey Robinson, but it was interesting because they used the top of Crossroads as a stage. So he was on top of the building and they had built this staircase going down onto the Hollywood Boulevard, which was kind of cool. And then they started bringing like generic movie type of personalities into the shots and they became dancers. So you had like Indiana Jones type of character and a Rocky type of character break into this dance that was so out of character for them. It was weird.
A little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was peak 80s. I mean, if you want a visual representation of what 1989 was like, just go watch this. Yeah. It's pretty accurate.
And then a shootout Western and then the flying platform. It was very, very weird. And it's endearing, I guess, maybe at this point. Is that a good word for it? Endearing?
It's cute.
It's cute. Okay, cool. And then after that, we meet John Ritter, of course, who I was a big fan of. And I'm going to go on a little tangent here for a second, just because my first time on the Walt Disney Studio lot was to see John Ritter recording his show, 8 Simple Rules for Dating My Teenage Daughter.
Wow.
And interestingly enough, the episode I was in the audience for was his last episode. Yeah,
Oh, wow.
I went... it was so funny because I remember sitting there in that audience and watching him, and he was having so much fun. And I was just like, man, I want to work with this man someday. He just seems like such a delight. And that's all I'd ever heard about John Ritter. And then I get home to Massachusetts, and like the next week he passed away, and I was like so devastated over that. But
wow.
In any case, that was my first visit to the Walt Disney Studio lot, thanks to John Ritter's show, 8 Simple Rules for Dating My Teenage Daughter. And he was there. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
My first trip to the studio lot would have been in the mid '90s when World Championship Wrestling was taping at the Disney-MGM Studios.
Oh, yeah. No, okay. You're talking about the theme park. No, I was talking about the actual Walt Disney Studios lot.
Over in gotcha.
California. But yeah, so they shot wrestling at Disney-MGM Studios.
They did, yeah. They used to shoot their syndicated programming in the sound stages, and my stepdad at the time was working at the park, so he would main gate my brother and I, and just drop us off in the park, and we would go get in line, go in, watch a half-hour taping, go back, get in line, go in, watch another half-hour taping, and we just watch wrestling all day. It was really cool.
I never actually went to a taping at Disney-MGM Studios, and I would have loved to have gone to a taping of MMC. Like, that would have been fantastic. How did that work? Was it one of those things where it's like today where you go to like tvtickets.com and you have to request the tickets and you get approval? Or was it literally just people in the theme park?
No, it was way easier. It was very similar to the Universal Studios Florida model, which is basically they would just pull extras from the park. It was considered a part of visiting the park. If there's something shooting, you're welcome to come watch it. Welcome to come be a part of it. So you would, the sound stages for WCW's syndicated stuff were pretty small. You can probably take 150, 200 people. So max. So they would, people would line up outside. They'd have PAs outside with clipboards and, answering, hey, if you want to watch a taping, it's going on over here. And you would go into this lobby and queue there, and then you'd actually be ushered into the sound stage. And, it looked very behind the scenes until you stepped out into the onstage portion of the sound stage, and they'd show you to your seats, and you'd watch the show, and they'd cut and turn the house lights back on and make changes. And it was really fascinating to watch the whole thing.
That's interesting because I definitely do not remember seeing any of that going on at Disney-MGM Studios, but I was also really young, so maybe I just wasn't paying attention to it. And I can totally picture my parents being like, no, we paid to go to a theme park. We're doing the rides. Like, we're not going to...
Well, also, it didn't happen that much. Disney would lead you to believe that they had a very successful working television studio there, but the reality is a majority of the time those stages sat empty. The studio did not shoot a lot of stuff there. Comparatively, the whole Hollywood East thing that both Universal and MGM Studios were really getting behind never really came to fruition.
Yeah, I wish that it did because, and I know, Nickelodeon was doing quite well shooting there. Supposedly, the reason I've heard, according to Mark Summers anyway, is that the reason they left the Florida location is because some new, I think maybe at some point Viacom bought Nickelodeon. I could be wrong about those dates, but in any case, some folks from New York got involved with Nickelodeon, and they were just kind of sick and tired of traveling to Florida for all of, to check things out and see how things were going there. So that's why that studio closed down there. And I'm like, that's such a bummer if that's the real reality of why it closed, because I still, to this day, when I go to Universal Florida, I still get sad when I see the old Nickelodeon sound stages.
Stupid Blue Man Group.
I know.
Dumb.
And I love Blue Man Group, but come on. Nickelodeon was so cool there. And the GAC guys I still miss the GAC guys.
And the fountain out front, I'm always like, I miss the fountain.
Yeah.
And then I tell people the story of the time capsule that they then had to move.
And then
they
move
put
again.
it in. Yeah.
Yeah. So
and move again, yeah.
It's out here now in Burbank, I believe. I live right down the street from one of the Nickelodeon studios here, and I'm pretty sure when I visited, I saw the capsule in the ground. So yeah, they've moved it a couple times now. But in any case, back to the Disney-MGM Studios grand opening TV special. So John Ritter is there, and he's kind of prepping for the park. He's got his little checklist of things that need to get done, and he's like, "We've got 2 days to get this done." And then somebody walks on and is like, "More like 2 hours to get this done." And of course, John Ritter has one of his classic freak out moments, and then it just becomes a lot of meeting different celebrities throughout it. We meet Kate Jackson, who I honestly had no idea who that was. Apparently, she's from Charlie's Angels, I guess. I got that a little bit later.
That explains the John Forsythe joke.
Exactly, and that's how I figured it out. And that was much later in the special. But I was like, but we'll get to that later. But in this moment with Kate Jackson, we are introduced to MMC, the Mickey Mouse Club. And one of the Mouseketeers come in, and they're like, "Where's my jacket?" And they pull their, that classic Mickey Mouse Club jacket off the chair. I actually have that jacket. I know. And that,
no way.
Yeah. Somebody I knew somebody that worked on the show, and they were throwing it away. And I was like, oh, no. It's the legit MMC jacket. And
that's wild.
Yeah.
You'll be able to retire on that someday.
Yeah, right. I wear it to Disneyland. I probably abuse it more than I should, but I love that jacket.
So you won't be retiring with it. You'll be buried in it.
Exactly. There we go. And then, of course, we go to the MMC soundstage, and they're recording a music video of Why Should I Worry, which is from Oliver and Company, right?
Why should I worry? Yeah. I think so.
From Oliver and Company. And, I remember that set of the diner. Oh, did you watch MMC?
I did not. I was a terrible child. I loved Disney, but I can't recall ever seeing an episode of the Mickey Mouse Club, old or new.
I loved that set of the spinning diner and stuff. And are you familiar with currently what's going on with Saved by the Max?
No.
Okay, so down in West Hollywood, this actually started in Chicago. There's kind of this trend in Hollywood right now of these pop-up restaurants. And we have a Saved by the Max here. And what they've done is legitimately recreated the Max from Saved by the Bell. And you can go dine there. And we also, there's another one that's called the Scum and Villainy Cantina, which is based on the cantina from Star Wars. But in any case.
That one I've heard of.
Yeah. So I want to go check out the Max. I haven't done it yet. But I absolutely want an MMC restaurant pop-up. And
it should spin.
Yes. I want that diner to be a real place that I can visit. That would make me very, very happy.
I want a spinning restaurant where 17-year-old child actors give me dinner.
Yeah. And sing while they do.
While singing and dancing. It's like Johnny Rockets, but younger.
Exactly. That is kind of what it's like, isn't it? And so in any case, after that, we go to see John Ritter again over at Catastrophe Canyon. And
this one was fun. He got to do something I always wanted to do.
Which is stand there?
Which is stand there during Catastrophe Canyon.
Yeah, Catastrophe Canyon was cool. It is funny, having grown up and visited the Universal parks and stuff in Hollywood, that it's clearly an exact ripoff of Earthquake.
Yeah.
But it's cool. I think the one effect that Catastrophe Canyon has that I actually don't think I've ever seen anywhere else in any sort of attraction is when they dump those buckets of water over the tram and it goes off over the ledge over your tram, which is a kind of cool effect. I like it.
Yeah, no, totally. Yeah, it feels like it's just dumping on the roof of your car, and that your car is the only thing saving you.
Yeah, exactly. And I will say, when they tore down Catastrophe Canyon, That was kind of rough to watch that happen.
It was really sad.
Yeah, I mean,
that and Residential Street. I'm sure we'll get to that later, but like Residential Street was just like the lining of my soul. I mean, how do you tear down the Golden Girls house?
Yeah. I don't know if I've ever, did I tell you the story? I might have told this on the show, but I'll make it real quick. Actually, I'll save this story until we get to Residential Street. But yes, right. I love Catastrophe Canyon. And then we get to perhaps the highlight of this special. Do you have any idea what I'm talking about? What was next? Do you remember?
After that would have been...
It was with Harry Anderson. And what was he? Harry Anderson from the show Night Court.
Uh-huh.
And what was he doing? Do you remember? He was riding something.
Oh, what did he ride? Now you got me on the spot. I can't remember it.
It was a giant bee from Honey, I Shrunk the Kids.
Yes, he did the chroma key thing, the blue screen.
Yes, they had a nice... Oh, back in the classic Disney-MGM Studios day where there's multiple opportunities to enjoy your Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. The only thing left now, anything Honey, I Shrunk the Kids related at Disney's Hollywood Studios that I know of anyway, is inside Mama Melrose's. They have an Italian poster of Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. They recently took down the giant billboard that's been in the park for many, many years. So,
well, and for people that don't know Jeff DePaoli, Jeff DePaoli is like, I'm sure he's wearing a bracelet right now that says, "What would Rick Moranis do?" And if not, you should make it and sell it, Jeff. Yeah, that movie was like very close to your childhood, so that was the one that kind of that one hits you in the feels. I can see it on your face.
I love Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, so I was just really happy to see that. And they really did feature Honey, I Shrunk the Kids quite a bit, because let's face it, like if you're going to do a theme park about special effects in the 80s, I mean, the park opened in 89 when that movie came out. That was a very technically advanced film for its time.
Yeah, totally. And they used that to highlight Superstar Television, which was just the coolest attraction, at least for the day. Nowadays, it's the kind of technology you can get in your bedroom.
Yeah. Isn't that crazy? Like,
it really is.
That's insane.
Ugh. Yeah, it took entire crews to shoot the kind of stuff that you can shoot in your bedroom with $1,000 worth of equipment now. So the technology is incredible, but the attraction would put you into classic shows, and they went through and did, these clips were not exaggerated. These clips that you saw in the grand opening video were actual clips that you could find yourself inserted in Superstar Television. So whether you're eating chocolates with Lucy or doing an interview with Howard Cosell, there were so many options, and you could volunteer before the show. There was a casting director a la Earthquake at Universal that would cast you for different roles, and they were looking for, different types and heights and ages and sexes, and they'd plug you in, and you had a host, a host of the show that would kind of, seg between the scenes, but you would end up seeing this video package put together of people that were sitting right there in the audience with you, in these classic movies and TV shows. It was really, really cool. And then that sadly went away too.
So that is in the space that is currently the Frozen sing-along, I believe. And before that was American Idol, and before that was Doug Live. I gotta be honest, I do not remember the Superstar, what was it called? Superstar Television. I don't remember that at all. I don't think I ever did it, to be honest.
Oh, you would have loved it. It was so cool.
Yeah, I do. I have to laugh. This was a little further in the special, but that's fine. I had to laugh because they pulled this young boy from the crowd to be part of it, and they were asking questions like, "Oh, well, what type of character would you play?" And the boy just goes, "I'm a jock." And I was like, "Oh, all right."
It makes you want to do like one of those "Where Are They Now" things. Like what is this kid doing for a living now? He's probably like a data analyst or something,
I always go the darker route, and I'm always like, probably dead at this point. I just always go for the worst.
You are terrible.
I know. It's just, there's a chance that he is. You know why I go that route? Because I can't tell you, I can't tell you how many times Kory's losing it now. Kory,
you're so stupid. He's probably dead.
Well, here's the deal. I can't tell you how many times I've looked up like child stars who went on to like never work again, and they've just been from stuff that I loved as a kid, and I look it up and like, oh, he's dead. or she's dead. Like, that's happened to me multiple times.
Yeah, but what data do you have on child jocks?
That's true. I mean, he probably got hit in the head with a baseball or something. I don't know. Anyway,
found out he wasn't a jock pretty quick.
Yeah, right.
It's not all fake interviews with Cosell, kid.
I'm a jock. It literally made me laugh out loud.
You know what? That you're right. The kid probably did have at the very least an unfortunate time through school, because I know if I was in school and there was footage of me saying I'm a jock, I would have been destroyed by bullies. So yeah, I hope he's well.
Anyway, back to the special effects portion with Harry Anderson. They did go to the special effects warehouse and the water tank, of course, which remained a staple of the studio tour until the end, didn't it? That water tank? Yeah,
and with very little change. They changed a couple of the boats that were sitting there in the special effects tank, but the overall presentation and the buoy and all that stuff pretty much stayed the same, yeah.
That's pretty remarkable if you think about it, that it survived that long.
Well, it just means that it worked and required very little staff to run it. That's why it lasted as long as it did.
I mean, the reason that these behind-the-scenes type of parks no longer exist or would work today is because I always say special features gave away way too much information, so everybody knows all this stuff that's going on these days. But also, it's just not how we make movies anymore. You know, it's like
totally
so done in computers, and it's such a bummer to me, and it's kind of hard to make that exciting in a theme park, I think. But in any case, after the special effects portion, throughout the special, they did kind of cut to celebrities and have them talk about their favorite movie moments. And one of the people that they cut to was Ronald Reagan, which I actually thought was pretty cool because he was president at the time.
Fast-forwarded that part.
You fast forwarded? Well, I like it because he was one of the hosts of the Disneyland opening day, along with our link letter, and I was like, oh, that's a nice little tie-in. And he was the president in '89, wasn't he? Yeah. I
think so. I'm going to have to Google that.
Google that, because my American history is not good. But, yeah, so there was Ronald Reagan. There's Carol Burnett getting her handprints.
He had just left office. He left office January 20th of '89. Okay,
so he had a little free time and was like, I can record this for the Disney-MGM Studios grand opening. Perfect. And then we see Carol Burnett getting her handprints done. So I kind of like that there's proof that these handprints in front of the Chinese theater are legit at Disney's Hollywood Studios. And then we meet John Forsythe, who, when you say John Forsythe, what do you think of?
See, I'm a weird kid, so I know the average person goes straight to Charlie's Angels because he's the voice of Charlie. Mm-hmm. I go straight to Scrooged.
Okay.
With Bill Murray.
Okay. I'm even weirder than you because, you know what? Number 2 for me would be Scrooged. And I legitimately didn't even realize that John Forsythe was the voice in Charlie's Angels until I just rewatched this special and I put 2 and 2 together because he made a comment about an angel and that actress I was talking about earlier that I didn't know what was her name, Kate Jackson. And I put it together and I was like, oh, so I IMDb'd it. And I was like, okay, so they are the Charlie's Angels people. For me, John Forsythe is the host of the Universal Studio Theme Park's souvenir videos.
Okay.
Do you remember these at all? I believe they're on YouTube.
I think I've seen one before, like vaguely, but I don't remember it with any detail.
Okay, well, I wish that the theme park still did this. They used to come out with like VHS tapes back in the day of, a souvenir thing exploring their parks, and John Forsythe hosted a VHS. I wish I'd burned them to DVD and I still have them, but I wish I kept those VHS tapes because you just cannot find those anymore. I mean, it's amazing. Somebody's probably got them on eBay, but I had both the Florida and Hollywood one, and it was hosted by John Forsythe. So when I see John Forsythe, I think Universal Studios. So I find it very funny that he was actually part of the Disney-MGM Studios grand opening as well. But
that's funny.
It's a weird thing to think of John Forsythe for, but.
All I can think is, I don't mind you hitting me, Frank, but take it easy on the Bacardi. That's like my favorite John Forsythe line from a movie ever.
Yeah, the last time I watched Scrooged, which was I think probably 2 years ago, I did have that moment of, oh, that's John Forsythe from the Universal Studios souvenir things. Like that was my first thought. That's weird. But in any case, he was over at the Indiana Jones Epic Stunt Spectacular stage. And this is interesting because, I don't know if you noticed, but nobody was in costume. This was
still during rehearsals for the show, I think.
Yeah, because that show didn't open until August 25th of that year.
Well, and that show was meant to be a temporary placeholder, right?
That's what I heard. Now, what did they want to put there? Do you know?
They wanted to put the upcoming Indiana Jones attraction that they were putting in at Disneyland.
That's right.
They wanted to put that in that place, but the stunt show was because the attraction for Disneyland was still in development. Obviously, this is 6 years before it opened. They put this in as something to just get something in there early that would pack the crowds in, and they didn't realize A, how much of a people eater this show would be, but B, how popular this show would be. And obviously, here we are almost 30 years later. It's still sitting there. And the sets, the thing that I heard that's the cast members in the show, and I'm not talking about the cast members that seat you, the cast members who were actually on the stage, really hate the sets because the sets were designed to last for about 6 months and then be torn down so they could build an attraction. And these sets are apparently like falling apart every day and have been for 30 years. They're just kind of like, they just slap some glue on it and put it back up and just hope it makes it another show.
What's so interesting about that, though, is that it doesn't, to me, there's nothing that looks temporary about it.
Totally.
It doesn't, those sets definitely look like they were, I've seen Disney make stuff that was temporary and purposefully temporary, and usually you can tell. In the case of the Indiana Jones Epic Stunt Spectacular, I would not say that that's the case, but I find that interesting. As I said, they weren't in costume because my guess is the costumes weren't even finished because the attraction was not ready to open when the park opened on May 1st, not till August 25th. There was a really great... John Ritter made me laugh so hard in this segment. Do you remember him with the classic Spike gag?
Yes. And as someone who grew up in Orlando and kind of understands how that gag works, I was watching it and I was like, okay, those are definitely going backwards now. They're going towards the first spike instead of the other direction. And they would have had to have completely overridden the show, or maybe it wasn't ready yet, and manually fired those so that they didn't hurt him.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because in the show, all but the last, like, the ones while he's running towards the stairs, all but those are triggered by the stuntman. Yeah. By floor pads. And there's no
really?
way.
I didn't realize.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, when he gets to the first one, you'll notice when you watch the show that there are black rubber pads on the ground, and he'll step into those and he'll step on a pad, and the spike will come up. And of course, he knows the heights of each of the spikes, which is why he can do the one that comes right up to his stomach because he knows where it's going to stop. And then as he stops and contemplates and then turns to run towards the stairs, somebody in the tech booth hits the last ones and they follow him up the stairs.
Oh, okay. I just learned
those
something.
He actually has to outrun, because if he just stands there after he starts running or just stops, that could go really badly.
They're styrofoam. Who cares, right? But it's fine.
Still hurt.
If it hits
they're definitely not styrofoam. They would hurt.
If it hits you in the right spot, it would definitely hurt. But
yeah, they're like hard rubber. So like they would bend, but they would bruise you up pretty good.
They need to add those spike pads to the queue of the Indiana Jones adventure. That'd be so great. They have that little room where it says don't step on the diamond stones or something.
Yeah, just take out every third kid that steps on a diamond.
Oh, man. That'd be
We'll fix those attendance problems right up.
I love it. That'd be great. But yeah, no, John Ritter working that spike gag made me laugh really, really, really hard. I loved it.
Yeah, he nailed it. It was all, the acting was so important in that scene.
Yeah. So going back to the dark place for a second. So there are a lot of people in this special that, they'd show and be like dead and dead and dead. Like there were so many people that are no longer with us. But then we get the man who probably is one of the last people anybody thought would still be with us. What is it, 30 years? What year are we going into? 31 years later? And that's Dick Van Dyke is still with us, right? And he was there as part of the special as an old man already, but that's fantastic. Love having Dick Van Dyke around. And he was talking about the Monster Sound show, which they didn't really show any of. Do you remember the Monster Sound show?
I do. They did show a couple of elements of it, but the elements that they showed were from the film. They had like a pre-show film that they would show when you first got in that would just kind of show you how Foley sound was done, which makes me think that the show itself wasn't ready yet. So they had the pre-show, they had the production elements for the show, but the actual piece inside the theater was not ready yet, because those were definitely taken right from the video, at least in my recollection.
Was that the Chevy Chase and Martin Short show?
It was, yeah. And then later, Drew Carey, Sounds Dangerous.
Oh, well, that was completely different and terrible. By the way, my math was off. This is the 20. I mean, that was really an embarrassment.
It was bad. It was bad.
Yeah. This is the 29th anniversary, because apparently I can't do math. The 29th anniversary of Disney's Hollywood Studios.
Yeah, 89, 99, 09, 2000.
Yeah. So
2019.
29. Next year, the big 3-0.
Uh-huh.
So then Dick Van Dyke talked a little bit about the Great Movie Ride, which they really didn't show much of, and that kind of surprised me, considering like that was the ride when that park opened. Mm-hmm. I'm surprised they just kind of skipped past that, because it seemed like, I mean, at that point the attraction would have had to been done enough to get some B-roll, you know? I don't know.
Maybe to a certain degree, but I wonder. Yeah, I did find it odd because that was kind of the centerpiece attraction. Or no, kinda. It was the centerpiece attraction of the park, and was until it closed in August. It kind of. I wonder if they jumped over it because of it not being ready. I wonder if they jumped over it because of copyright.
Oh,
I wonder
that may have been
their
it.
MGM agreement did not cover doing stuff for broadcast television. Seems a little short-sighted. Seems like the kind of thing Disney might have wanted to work out in the contract, but you never know. I know their relationship with MGM was a little wishy-washy over the years, so I wonder if this was an early conflict where they were like, no, you can't use, this. I mean, they did show Alien. Mm-hmm. They did show Indiana Jones.
They showed Wizard of Oz.
They showed Wizard of Oz, and I think that was it. Like, I think they that's all they showed, and I wonder if it had anything to do with copyright. But then you have one of the actresses in one of the little vignettes that opened each segment talking about their favorite movies, and one of them was Casablanca, and Casablanca was mentioned, and footage from the movie was shown in the special. So maybe it wasn't a copyright thing. I mean, only people that were there that day would know, but it did seem very odd that it's like, here's our centerpiece attraction, which we're not going to show you. Let's go look at everything else.
Like, you're going to have to come visit the park to experience the Great Movie Ride.
Maybe it was like, okay, we have a choice here. We can do the Great Movie Ride, or we can do a huge, spectacular dance number with Smokey Robinson.
Well, there's quite a few huge, spectacular dance numbers in this special, and we're getting to some of those in a second. After Dick Van Dyke, we had a little clip from Mickey Rooney, and then Jane Fonda talking about the Grapes of Wrath, and it got really serious. Did you happen to watch this, or did you fast forward through that?
I think I was at the point where I was like, oh, it's Jane Fonda, I love her. And then she was talking, and I fast forwarded it.
She was talking and talking and talking, and it got like really, really serious when it came to the Grapes of Wrath stuff. And then
she was bitter about being mentioned with the F's in the opening credits.
That's right. She's like, in alphabetical order. It's too funny. So then they went to Superstar Television, which we talked a bit about. Of course, they featured shows like General Hospital, I Love Lucy, and The Tonight Show, and some sports show that I'd never even heard of. I'm a jock.
I feel like you're gonna like hit me with this at the end. You're gonna be like, that jock.
Yeah.
It was me at the end of the show.
No, I
was a jock.
I'll tell you the truth, though, right now. If anybody knows the I'm a Jock kid, please let him know he is welcome on Disney Coast to Coast anytime. I would love to have a discussion about that moment in his life.
Yeah, same goes for No Midnight Podcast Channel. He is welcome here in our studio anytime, because I want to pick that kid's brain.
In alphabetical order. I'm a jock. Anywho, then there was Margaret Thatcher on there, and then a huge sequence with Suzanne Somers. And is it Summer or Summers?
Summers. With an S. Yeah.
And you want to know what the first thing I thought was when I saw her on the special was I was like, I wonder if
she wore white.
No, I thought to myself, I wonder if her and John Ritter connected on this, because there was all that whole backstage controversy with John Ritter and Suzanne Somers on Three's Company. I was like, ooh, they're both part of the special. I wonder if they like mingled at the party. That was the first thing I thought. What a stupid thing to think and worry about.
No, it's not. I mean, we're in the content creation industry, so we're keeping an eye on what celebrities are doing, and that's very perceptive of you. Maybe there's a story to that. I don't know. I don't think they talked. I think that came many, many, many years later. I know that they did speak to each other like pretty close to the time that he passed away. The reality is, though, that a lot of these, very rarely, only in like the real scenes that were shot like in park.
Yeah.
did you really see celebrities together?
Yeah, it was mostly.
So a lot of these celebrities, I mean, may have never even encountered each other. These may have been shot over the course of a month, and you just had no idea.
Yeah, it's always funny when movies are even made that way. And you hear of actors who have like worked together several times. You're like, we've literally never done a scene together. We see each other at the red carpet, and that's it. So. So Suzanne Somers did a huge musical number, which they were kind of trying to show you what like the production designer and the wardrobe people do through this big musical number. Oh goodness, what was the song? I'm blanking. Was Rhythm of the Night, right?
Yes, that was the was a Gloria Estefan song, wasn't it?
Yeah. Yes, indeed. And after that, they took us to the Disney animation department, which was a huge portion of the studios at that point, where they actually made Disney animated films. And it was kind of, this was kind of a throwback, seeing them literally ink and paint the animated films. I was like, oh my goodness, there's not a computer in sight.
Yeah, spoiler alert, that's not the way that's done anymore.
No, but... Which
is a shame.
I would really love to see somebody just do that again. There must be somebody out there still keeping that art alive, I would assume.
I'm sure. One of my favorite things at the park at the time was the animation building. And before it became Star Wars Launch Bay, for those of you that are wondering where it is in the park. One of my favorite things about it was the fact that you could actually see real Disney animators working on films. And I remember, a lot of the work for Hunchback was done there. And I remember going on the tour of the animation building while that was going on. And you could literally look down at like this, cubicle hell of animators on the floor, and you could, zoom in with your eyes and look, and they were literally drawing keyframes for Hunchback of Notre Dame right in front of you. And, of course, a couple of years later, that movie would come out, and it was amazing. And of course, you could never identify the scene that was being drawn, but it was wild to get to see, people putting ink to paper that would eventually become Disney's next major motion picture.
Yeah, that was a pretty incredible and special space. And when they got rid of that, I feel like that was really a big key turning point for Disney-MGM Studios.
Well, it got away from the whole idea behind the park. And I understand that the idea had to evolve. I don't know that it needed to completely die as a concept.
I feel like it kind of did, though, because I really just don't think people are impressed by the process of making motion pictures anymore. Like, we're just so jaded by it, and we all know way too much, I feel,
about how everything's done.
Yeah, special features on DVDs like did that. And
yeah, well, and especially in the YouTube age, even producing a television show, almost gets to the point where, to a young teenager, not necessarily a millennial, I think we still have an attachment to the way movies are made and stuff, but getting a little younger than that, it looks clunky and cumbersome. And why do all this work when I can go buy have my parents buy me a great DSLR for Christmas, and I can become I can do my own TV show. And I think that's why I said I don't think the process necessarily needed to die, but I think it needed to evolve. And I think that I don't know, I think that Disney has gotten to a point where they're limiting themselves and eliminating, I used the analogy the other night of, when I just switched to an Android from an iPhone, and they have this thing where when the phone is full and you want to install another app, it goes, you need to delete an app to make room for this app. And I understand doing that at Disneyland, but doing that in Florida is counterproductive to me because you have so much space. They're going to be able to grow that property for 200 years and not run out of space. And instead of doing new things or innovating old ideas, they're just destroying old ideas in a lot of ways and sending them to the dustbin of history, and either doing overlays that don't quite do enough, or completely changing the concept of a park that, may not have necessarily needed to go away. It needed to evolve heavily, but I don't know that it needed to go away. And I feel like, especially, the energy is still in the park. There's a feeling that you got, back during the Disney-MGM Studios days that is still there today, but it's dying. The feeling is dying. And I'm really hoping whatever Disney does next will breathe some new life into that park, because right now that energy that you crave. I used to crave going to Hollywood Studios or MGM Studios. It just, was a feeling of vibe and energy in that park that is still there to a certain degree, but is definitely fading.
Yeah, I think one of the nice things about that park is that we still have that entrance. We still have the Hollywood Boulevard entrance, and we still have, well, now we have that view of the Chinese theater back. And I think that
Hallelujah.
Yeah, so I think that really lends a lot to still getting, those kind of like butterflies in your stomach when you enter. I just love that park, even through its, terrible years that it's gone through with all the construction and everything. I love that park very, very much, and I hope that they keep the entrance as it is for a long time, because I think it's really special, and I really think it goes back to that statement that Michael Eisner said, the Hollywood that never was and will always be, because that entrance alone is just that, Yeah.
So it's Hollywood the way it exists in all of our minds, but never actually existed in real life.
Yeah, it's beautiful. In any case, after the Disney animation, we meet Stephanie Powers, who's an actress that I have no idea what she's from. Do you have any idea?
No clue.
No idea. And then we go to Residential Street, and of course they have to stop at the most famous house on Residential Street, which is the home of the Golden Girls. And so Estelle Getty and Rue McClanahan show up for that. And now Residential Street, if people are not familiar with it, so it's sat where the Lights, Motors, Action stunt show. Is that the right name? I always script that name.
Yeah, Lights, Motors, Action.
Yeah.
It's almost identically, like right where it's at. And Lights, Motors, Action was way larger than Residential Street was, but same general. The real estate there had to be bulldozed to build that theater.
Yeah, which was a real bummer. So these are simply house facades that you saw when you took the studio tour. Of course, the studio tour kept getting smaller and smaller and smaller. So Residential Street eventually went away to make room for that stunt show. But that was another big blow to the studio, I think, when they got rid of Residential Street.
It was. I have a great memory of Residential Street when they used to do this thing. I told you my stepdad worked at MGM Studios in its early days, and they, every year, of course, in America, they have this the Bring Your Kid to Work Day thing, which is it was a bigger deal when I was young. I don't know how big of a deal it is now. I also don't have kids, so maybe that's why I don't know if it's still a thing. But bring your dogs to work day, I'm in on. But he would bring us, and Disney actually had a program for this at the time, and it was really cool. They actually let him on the clock spend the day with us for a couple hours with us before he had to go out to work. It was like they had, they had like supervised stuff that we did throughout the day. And then there were moments during the day where he could leave what he was doing and come join us for stuff. So me and my brother got to go do this, and they took us not just on the backstage studio tour, but they actually took us, to the costume shop and and we actually got to go to these places and go to the Thunder Pool where they shot, a lot of the underwater scenes for, I forgot the submarine movie, something. They actually had a full-size pool where they would shoot underwater stuff. It was built for Hulk Hogan's Thunder in Paradise, which is why it was called the Thunder Pool. But it was where they would shoot underwater stuff. So they took us there and did my stepdad was a freelance diver, so he got to do a diving demonstration of going down and diving in the pool and changing out lighting, and then. As lunchtime comes around, we've been with our chaperones for a while, and they throw us in a van and they drive us down Residential Street, and we stop in front of Ernest's house. And there are tables set up down the driveway of Ernest's house, including in the carport and up on the front porch. And that's where we ate lunch. They had like a bag lunch for us. And so we all got to sit there, and our stepdad got to come join us, and we actually got to sit on Residential Street. The Golden Girls house is right there, and the empty nest house is right there, and the Flintstones house is down there, and
Flintstones wasn't there. I heard you say that in an episode once, and I was like, "That
it was there at one point. It was there after the Rosie O'Donnell Flintstone movie was made."
Are you thinking? But that was Universal.
Was it?
Yeah, you're
maybe
thinking.
Maybe I am. What am I thinking of?
Tarzan.
Then? Oh, I'm thinking Tarzan. Thank you. Or was it George of the Jungle?
George of the Jungle.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, that house. Sorry. Thank you for correcting me. Now I feel dumb. No, but
it's okay. It's just I had to because I'm such a diehard Flintstones fan.
No, totally. That makes sense.
It does star Rick Moranis after all. So
similar real estate. It's similar look.
Yeah. No, it was George of the Jungle.
But it was very cool. It was a cool experience to, and then they let us actually go into the facade and see how there was literally nothing. You walk through and look, there's a little lake back here, and to get to be up close and touch some of those houses before obviously their eventual demise was really cool.
Yeah, that residential street had like a special spirit to it, and as you said, like normally people didn't get to walk through it. But I think and I never did this myself, but for the Christmas lights,
for the Osborne Family Spectacle of Lights, you actually got to walk Residential Street.
And I
forgot about that.
I so regret never doing that because I do remember being there. And I remember seeing the lights on the houses like during daytime. And I don't remember if like my family and I just had left at night or what. For some reason, I never saw it. And I never saw any Osborne spectacle of dancing lights at Disney's Hollywood Studios.
You missed out. It was really cool.
I know. I was really hoping like they'd bring it to Toontown or Downtown Disney or something here at Disneyland. I felt like there were, or Hollywoodland over at DCA. Like I felt like there were opportunities for it, but obviously, they didn't want to do that. But yeah.
last I heard, all of those lights are still in storage. Disney still owns them.
Last I heard, that they're actually go to other parts of the country. I feel like for the last 2 years, they've actually been displayed. Like those same displays have been other places.
I wonder if Disney has a share in that. I wonder if Disney, because I know Disney bought them from the Osborne family. So
interesting.
The Osborne family doesn't actually own them. Anymore.
Yeah,
I would imagine because their name's on it, they're going to have a certain, I don't know, a certain ownership of it over the years. But I'm just checking their Wikipedia page, and there's nothing about it traveling anywhere. It just talks about how it closed. Final performance January 6, 2016.
I know
that was it.
See, from what I've heard, my friend Kyle Burbank over at Laughing Place, he had mentioned, I think they changed the name of it. They don't call it the Osborne family anymore, but like it was the same, that spinning carousel of angels and stuff, like the same thing. Maybe it's somebody who just did a complete ripoff. I don't know. But I know similar type of things have been in other parts of the country. And if I'm quoting Kyle Burbank wrong, he will email me and let me know. How dare I? But
I would love to see those lights go back up on the International Gateway of Epcot.
Oh wow!
Like since they got rid of the big archways, which I remember from growing up, let's do that whole stretch. Yeah, during Christmas would be kind of cool. Just the bridge area, just the area leading from Future World to World Showcase would look kind of cool.
Yeah, there are several places I feel like they could do it, but I just don't think they want to do it anymore. In any case, so after the Streets of America, after Residential Street, we got a huge musical number from the Streets of America. And they did New York, In the Mood, Summer in the City, 42nd Street. Like, it was a massive musical number with a bunch of artists I did not really recognize, to be honest. But
same.
They took advantage of that street for sure. Got a quick little clip from Walter Cronkite. And then John Ritter up on the Earful Tower. And that was another thing that made me just so sad. The Earful Tower, God, how I missed that. I want to know where the Earful Tower is. I have a feeling it's in a junkyard, which is really depressing to me.
Or just sitting in some random corner of property. Disney has this way, and I mean, in the social media age, I imagine they've started to get a little smarter about this. But I remember when I worked at Epcot, there was, if traffic was busy, there was a way to get around to the manager parking lot that I parked in, where you'd go in like you were going into the regular cast lot, but then you would take this like shady right turn that was unmarked, and it would take you around the side of the park and out into the front parking lot. And one day I drove by there, and I guess I had never realized it before, but sitting in the bushes off the side of the road were 3 Jungle Cruise boats.
That's so crazy.
Just sitting there, just rotting in the dirt. And I was like,
yeah.
I was like, if I could come through here with a flatbed, forget this job. I just need one of these boats.
Yeah.
You know? Like, I wonder what kind of thing I'd have to sit these in to get it off property without getting arrested, because wow. But yeah, Disney will let stuff they have boneyards throughout the property where they just let stuff sit and die. It's sad.
That's so weird to me. And yet in other cases they take such great respect for things. And did you hear about how we got the new train tracks at Disneyland for, how they did?
Yeah, I know about, they're recycling.
Not train tracks, I'm sorry, the trolley tracks on Main Street. Yeah. So apparently like they had never really done that since opening day. And so
they had repaired like sections,
exactly.
little pieces, but yeah.
So they've preserved the original tracks. Like, they kept it. So it's like, if you're going to preserve original, like, the Earful Tower should be preserved. I get it. It's pretty large, but maybe we'll see it in one of those commercials where we go to the Disney archives and they tease whatever's coming next. Maybe we'll see the Earful Tower in there one of these days.
Maybe so. There was all that gossip and speculation when Disney Springs was being built, because there was, a water tower in the artist renderings, and there is now a water tower at Disney Springs, but it is not the Earful Tower. It's not even the same, width. You can just tell that they're completely unrelated, and everybody was kind of hoping that they would find a way to repurpose the Earful Tower and put it over there. But I don't know. I would like to think that we haven't seen the last of it. It's around somewhere and may pop up as an Easter egg somewhere someday. But right now it's.
I love it.
Bye.
I love it so much. You know what? It's so large. Like, it was massive. Maybe you could put like a little restaurant in it. Take the legs off of it. And just, what was that?
That'd be amazing.
Yeah, that'd be so great if they just like took the legs off, put it on the ground, and then you could like go inside, make a little bar or something.
That's what I wanted to do with one of the Jungle Cruise boats. I wanted to put it in the backyard and put a bar in it. Wouldn't that be cool?
That would be pretty cool.
Like chop the bottom off so it sits flush on the ground, and then you can just walk into it with, sit on the benches and have cocktail and
pretty epic. So after all of that fun stuff, we had the Parade of Stars, which is part of the grand opening of the park. And we had, let's see, Bette Midler and Michael Eisner were together in a vehicle, which just goes to show Bette Midler for the Walt Disney Company, for that Buena Vista Pictures, or Touchstone Pictures rather, making a lot of money for the studio at that point if you're sitting with the CEO.
She did. She did that. She had that film that they showed on the Backlot Studio tour that starred Bette Midler, and it was fabulous. One thing I noticed before we get too far away from Streets of America, did you notice that there was a car commercial that played during this broadcast that was shot on Streets of America with Disney characters? I think it was Toyota.
That's funny.
They did an ad, and it was like it was right in front of, they had like a facade of like a fancy hotel on Streets of America, and the car pulled up in front, and a couple of the hippos from Fantasia ran out and hopped into the car, and like Minnie was up waving on the porch, and then the Toyota drove off. But I noticed that during the broadcast, I was like, even some of the commercials, like, that's cool synergy, if you ask me.
Yeah, that is pretty cool. I remember as a kid, after we would visit the studios out here in Hollywood on vacation, like my brother and I would be watching TV and always try to guess like which lot this was shot on, and it was a fun game for us. And yeah, I love it. I just love studio backlots. I think that they're great. So back to the Parade of Stars, we had, as I said, Bette Midler and Michael Eisner. Kevin Costner was there. Sissy Spacek. The most important one of all, Mr. Rick Moranis, was there.
I knew that was coming.
We had Betty White, George Lucas, Audrey Hepburn, and a bunch of other stars. I can't even tell you how happy it made me to see Rick Moranis as part of this parade. Oh, the joy.
Did it make your day?
It made my day. I loved it. And then we had the Michael Eisner ribbon cutting ceremony. At the end of this, it's kind of like they ran out of theme park stuff to show, so they just had random concerts. They had the Pointer Sisters singing "I'm So Excited." I don't really know where they were performing. It was like a stage surrounded by black. I think I might have heard later when George Burns performed there that it was, I think, where Indiana Jones Stunt Spectacular was. I think they just put up a temporary stage.
They use that spot for a lot of stuff. They'll put up stages for corporate events and things like that where they need to talk. They also for many years, and I think this still happens at Walt Disney World. I don't know that it happens there in that specific venue anymore, but that was also where the World Cheerleading Championships were every year, was at the Indiana Jones soundstage. Yeah, they'd build put all the sets way in the back and had a big wall with the logos and stuff, and then they put the mats out because it's a huge floor in that, and that's where they did the championships every year.
Interesting. I did not realize that. And so the George Burns performance, oh my goodness, did you watch that?
I admittedly skipped that one.
Okay, he should have retired by that point. It's just so interesting to me, he doesn't need to be working anymore, yet I don't know. They had George Burns there, they had Willie Nelson there. They had the handprint ceremony once again, so we can see all these handprints in front of the theater are official. And then they had a big, they made an announcement. I found this interesting. They announced the park opening. You know, this was the grand opening of the park, and they mentioned the date of April 30th, 1989, which I found really interesting because we celebrate the park opening as May 1st, 1989. Mm-hmm. Yet, for some reason, in this special, they specifically mention April 30th. And, of course, all the characters come out. Roger Rabbit is there, who was supposed to be a big icon for that park until legal problems became...
Missed opportunity.
Yeah. But, yeah. And that was pretty much the special. Of course, it did end with a little tribute by Michael Eisner to Lucille Ball, who had passed away just a couple days before on April 26th of 1989. This episode of Disney Coast to Coast has a lot of mention of death in it. I think more than any other.
Yeah, I was like, Jeff's feeling particularly dark today.
Yeah, I don't...
Like, you're generally a happy, cheery guy, but some of your, you killed off a lot of people today, and then...
I didn't kill any of them.
And then you also, were, pretty critical of some of the stars. I was like, wow, I don't ever want to be on Jeff's critiques list.
Why? Who was I mean to?
George Byrne.
I mean, come on. Okay, wait a second.
He should have retired, but...
Kory, wait a second. You got to go back and watch the George Burns performance because I was like, this is not good. Like, I don't know.
It's that bad?
It's not good.
I'll go back and watch it.
There's this thing there are some people around today that I'm like, oh, please just retire. Because I don't know, here's the thing. If I were a celebrity of that stature, I think I would want to leave on top, right? I feel like Johnny Carson did it the best, right? He was on top of the world. He ended the show on his terms, and then he was like never heard from again. And he just, lived his life and didn't get caught up in crap. And I don't know. We remember Johnny Carson in such like a nice light. You know what I mean?
Well, but Johnny Carson also I would be willing to bet, made a lot more money in his lifetime than George Burns did.
You think George had to be working?
Probably, but maybe not had to be working, but still felt a need to be working.
If that's the case, I always feel bad for celebrities like that.
Because, Jeff, are you ever going to stop working?
I mean, I hope that I would not be going on stage if I couldn't do what I did best at one point. I don't know.
Let's be honest, though.
I hope I would take more of a behind-the-scenes role at that point.
Oh, okay, gotcha. All right, so you'll know when she's reached the height of her pretty and needs to come off stage.
Listen, there could be people listening right now who are like, Jeff, you've peaked. Walk away. Like, so if that's the case, I've already overstayed my welcome. But who knows, right?
You are on a roll today, Jeff DePaoli.
Anyway.
I like it.
Anyway.
You're not past your prime, by the way, for the record.
I'm in my prime? Oh, thanks.
I said you're not past it.
Oh, I'm not past my prime.
You're fabulous and you're doing great work.
Oh, thank you very much. Anyway, is there anything else you want to add about this special before we move on a little bit?
It just brought back a lot of nostalgia for me. I basically grew up at Walt Disney World. I tell that story all the time, and Studios had an energy. It was a place where there was a lot of coming of age moments for me. So to see the park probably before I remember it, because I would have been 7 years old when this special aired. So this was way before the MGM Studios that I remember.
See, I went this first year.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I probably did, but I probably don't remember it. Like, my true vivid memories of that park would have been in the early to mid 90s.
Okay.
Possibly even moving more into the late 90s. So I have a lot of memories of that park, but to see the inception of it was really cool. Similar to watching the Disneyland broadcast. I mean, by today's standards, that park would have been terrible.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But it was really cool seeing the building blocks of what the park became during Walt's lifetime and then subsequently became after his lifetime.
Anywho, I think that wraps it up for this special, the Disney-MGM Studios grand opening. Of course, as I said, you can see it on YouTube. I will have a link of it in the episode description, but I think that means...
It's trivia time!
Okay, Kory, do you want to hit me with a trivia question first, or shall I hit you?
I'm gonna give you a choice here.
Okay.
Do you want to talk about Indiana Jones?
Honey, I Shrunk the Kids.
Or An Ugly Hat?
Or an ugly hat. Oh, the Brown Derby. Well, let's go with Indiana Jones.
I like that you guessed. It was definitely not the Brown Derby I was going to talk about.
What was the ugly hat?
The sorcerer's hat. I was going to talk about that.
Oh. Gotcha.
The eyesore. Okay, the hat wasn't ugly. Its location was terrible.
Yeah.
Okay, so the giant rolling ball in the Indiana Jones Epic Stunt Spectacular weighs how much?
I'm terrible at this type of stuff. 376 pounds.
If this were The Price is Right, you would have been pretty close without going over. So you would have won 440 pounds.
Okay. I think they even mention it in the show, don't they?
Yes, they do. They talk about how it's massively heavy and can't be moved by one man, and then a stage tech walks up, pushing it with one hand up the thing. 440 pounds on that track is not a lot. Like when you think about spread out to something that size. The moving sets in the show, fun fact, weigh 100 tons.
Wow.
To move. The ones that are on the tracks, the actual temple scene.
I love the temple scene.
Cool stuff. I love that whole show.
Yeah, it is a great show, and they've done a good job through the years. You know, these shows have to get shorter and shorter because our attention spans keep getting crappier and crappier. But they've done a pretty good job, I feel like, keeping that show on a roll. No pun intended.
Well, and that show has also had a lot of issues. It's gone through a couple of the stunts that were in the show earlier are now gone because they've had several injuries and a couple of deaths on the set.
Wow!
So they have to be,
now you're being the downer with the death.
I know.
Stuff, man.
There's like a theme here. It's depressing, but no. The show has evolved a lot, and it's gotten shorter. It's gotten more fast paced, but I still think that the heart of the show's there, and it's still a cool experience.
The theme of the show today is simply that Disney-MGM Studios is dead. That's
your title, The Death of Disney-MGM Studios. Opening day to today.
Anywho, I've got
the long, slow death of Disney-MGM.
29 years of death. Man, we've lost it. Anyway, Kory, I've got some trivia for you. My question for you is, what was the first major expansion of Disney-MGM Studios, and when did it happen?
The first major expansion would have been Sunset Boulevard.
Correct. And when did that open?
I want to say 91 or 92.
Nope.
Later?
Yeah.
Wow. 95?
No, it was July 22nd, 1994.
Okay. All right. Mid-90s. Yeah.
I remember seeing the tower being built and seeing billboards advertising the Tower of Terror, and for a long time I didn't ride it because it scared the crap out of me. But
so good. See, my memories of I truly think that my memories of MGM Studios start in the mid-90s because I cannot actively recall a time when Sunset Boulevard was not there.
That's so interesting because we're the same age.
Yeah.
And I have very, very vivid memories of my November 1989 trip to Disney-MGM Studios. God, I loved that park so much. Still do. I still do. I'm one of those people. I know there are people who can go to Walt Disney World today and say, hey, you can skip the studios. I'm like, no way. I need to go.
Oh, I'll do it. It'll take me about 2 hours, but I'll do it.
I actually, believe it or not, I think it was 2 years ago, I went and spent a good chunk of a day at Disney's Hollywood Studios and just kind of did everything and loved it. And the thing is, like, now when I go, I feel like I really try and take in what's there because I'm like, the day's going to come when Gertie's gone, or the day's going to come when that Indiana Jones Epic Stunt Spectacular is gone. You know, it just, so much of that is going away that I kind of just want to have it as long as I can, I guess.
Absolutely. Yeah. That energy is still there, but it's waning.
Yep.
But thankfully there are still elements of that park that take you back. You know, you walk into the park and you can still feel the old park, even though that park's growing, you know, at the speed of light.
Yeah. Anyways, guys, happy 29th anniversary to Disney's Hollywood Studios. Kory, thank you so much for coming on the show. If you want to check out the No Midnight Podcast, head to nomidnightpodcast.com, right?
Yeah, nomidnightpodcast.com.
Anything else you want to plug before we go?
No, check out our new serial that will apparently be airing as this show is airing, maybe, possibly. That's Good Stuff on Fridays, and then Happy Hour Lives, our live show on Wednesdays, and Trending on Mondays. And we have a YouTube channel, and we're on all the social media. Just search No Midnight Podcast.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Kory.
Thank you for having me.
And before we get going, I want to remind all of you guys that you can get some pretty cool rewards over on our Patreon page. You can help support the show there as well as get rewards like live stream Q&As and more stuff. So check that out at patreon.com/DCTC. Of course, a new month is headed our way, which means there's going to be a new music playlist. Make sure you sign up for that over at DisneyCoastToCoast.com and click on playlist. All of our social media can be found at DisneyCoastToCoast.com as well. And other than that, have a magical day, everybody. Bye!
Thanks for watching Disney Coast to Coast. Have a magical day.
Disney Coast to Coast is produced and hosted by Jeff DePaoli. Learn more about the podcast and become a supporter at DisneyCoastToCoast.com.